with me now?
Okay, you saying, oh, that's a good question. Oh, wow. All right. Well, I say this is always, we talk about over-communicate, 7 ways of communicate. Don't just automatically do that. You send a flyer out. Now, that may bounce back if they're not home. You know, you might have bad mail. You want to put it on your website, but if you don't have internet, then again, you're spotty again. I'm trying to think. You guys might have to help me out there, because that's a good question.
No, I asked that question because you made a point that 60% or more of our teachers, and I don't know if LA Unified, but I know in California are white females. And they're not only white females, they're middle class females. And so they come in with different values than our students. And so everybody doesn't have the internet, everybody doesn't have a laptop. And so a lot of people don't have the same resources that they have. So how the outreach may look, has to look different for our students.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I don't want to say something I'm not 100% sure on, but I would just think of multiple ways of communicate. I mean, of course, mailers and flyers and put on your marquee, but everybody's not going to look at that either. And also, just to speak to your point, John, a lot of times our teachers don't like to call parents. You know, they sometimes think black and brown parents are confrontational, so they won't say anything. They won't call. You won't know what's going on in the classroom. So it's a lot of factors that go on. That's why it's so important that we got to be proactive and reach out. And if they don't get back to you within 24 hours, you go to the assistant principal or the principal. Let them know that you know chain of protocol, so that you can follow up and hold them accountable. But I couldn't answer your question.
No.
And I think that at the end of the day, that sometimes, which is it's interesting that you guys brought that up, because that was one of the questions that me and Lady Karen had as far as cultural relevance. And it goes back to my mom when she was here working for DCFS. She always said that it was always interesting to her how she would get, and it was mostly white females that were coming from different parts of the city, and they get dropped into South LA and not understand the cultural norms that go on in our community. So that sometimes they would go on home calls because they said that the apartment complex was too loud. And when my mom would go, she was like, well, it's not too loud. She's like, yeah, but they always talk loud over here. She's like, that's just how they communicate. We sometimes are talking loud. That doesn't mean we're angry. We just loud talkers, right? Can I get an amen for my black and brown folks? We just talk loud. Hey, B, what's up, man? You good? See, that's just how we talk. We're not angry at each other. So sometimes those cultural norms are not known or even trained. And so I'm gonna come back and ask a question about how are we training our teachers and principals for cultural relevancy.
That was my question. Because the understanding of us having majority white teachers who may or may not know the culture differences in our communities, it is a burden. For me, when I was a teacher, I had a story that comes to mind is I had a parent who drove the Metro bus. And we had ParentTeacher Conferences for a whole week. And every time she could not make it, she called me and she said, it was very last minute, it was very random. She said, Ms. Johnson, I have 15 minutes. I'm on the corner of West and Martin Luther King. I'm about to park this bus. Can we talk for 15 minutes? And I was literally on my way home, getting in the car, and wasn't thinking about having another parent-teacher conference. But I knew this was the only opportunity I was going to have with my parents and with their son, and wanted to value her time as well. So I often have this question of who also would have done that? Who also would have met that woman at the bus on the corner of Martin Luther King to have that conversation about her child? And that's the type of educator I feel like you have to be when you're working with our kids. And that's not what we're getting in every room, in all of your children's classrooms. So I think that is the right question, Pastor Nelson, is how are we preparing teachers to be able to do that type of work and not burn out as well?
And as in our teacher education courses, they're not covering that either. They're not covering cultural responsive pedagogy. For us, we do have what's called Access and Equity Department in our district, where we are working with schools and teachers, and as part of their new teacher training, we're doing it. But when you're getting your credentials, there is no culturally responsive training, and that's odd to me why we shouldn't. So we should be looking at our universities and our teacher ed programs to make sure we're incorporating those type of courses in there about trauma and how to be culturally responsive, because we do know it is a cultural mismatch in what our kids bring and how, the way schools are set up historically. So I agree.
Okay. Looking at when I was in school over 30 years ago, I know that we had certain different resources and classes. There were a lot more things offered to us in school, not just, you know, your basic academics, but we had other courses that we could take that may have been of interest, you know, shop class, you know, apparel art, sewing, you know, mechanics, and that type of thing. And knowing that those things have been slowly phased out. So does more money and resources mean a better education that those that lack the affirmative, the affirmation?
So does money and resources mean better education?
Not necessarily, because if you're fiscally irresponsible, there's some schools that have money just sitting up, and then at the end you're forcing to try to spend the money, or you're losing the Title I. So it's really looking at the needs, and that's why in most schools we have what's called a single plan for student achievement, where you're looking at the needs of your students by subgroups. So, and I'm gonna give an example. You know, you can have a good school like Lacey's, and everybody wants to put their kid there, but if you really break down and look at how the black kids are doing versus the brown kids, some of them might have different experiences. I can't tell you how many times I've had colleagues call me who put their kid at a school that was predominantly affluent or white, and the teachers, they had poor interaction, the counselors weren't getting back to them, and they had a very negative experience. And then they would come to a school like a Henry Clay or a Washington, where you had a lot of individuals who grew up in that community who were alumni. You know, I was an alumni. I went to Clay too, and I went to Washington. So you have a heart, and you like, you know what, I want to see my kids do better, so you go above and beyond. So I say that because a lot of times you can just pour money, but if you're not aligning it to what the needs are, then you're being fiscally irresponsible. So if I know I got a lot of kids who are coming to me with trauma, then I want to get a psychiatric social worker. I want to have a nurse 2 or 3 times a week. So really looking at what the needs are of your school, and then how do you align those resources to support them. And I think that's important, because otherwise they can throw money all day, Title I money, but if you don't have somebody being laser-like and looking at what am I going to do with these funds, then again, it can be a waste. So all money, not good money, I guess.
So how do we address, when you look at the situation, what are you all's input when you're the 1%? Whether you are the 1% as far as teacher of color, if you are an African-American teacher in a setting to wherein you see black students getting disciplined more than white students, and then what do you do to help push to wherein you advocate more for teachers that look like you?
That one hits me hard, Pastor Nell, because I was that teacher, and that's why I'm no longer in the classroom, because I felt like no one had my back. Everyone was asking me, why was I going above and beyond? Why are you doing those things? Those kids don't care. And so I think there has to be a huge shift in our culture. And I'll even be honest, it's also people who look like us. I taught at a school where my principal looked like me. She was a woman. And I still didn't feel like she got it. So there has to be a culture shift in what we have taught ourselves what education is supposed to look like. And that's why I always go back to, I feel like our young folks are resisting that for us, and they're modeling that for us to be able to do better.
You guys touched on a point about empathy. I think empathy and it's part of the community. We're part of the community, and each one teach one. And you see someone down, and I mean, feeling the need to go out and reach back and help that kid. I mean, just like, one of the panelists mentioned, if the parent schedule is contrary to the school schedule, I mean, eventually it's important that you go and meet that need. A lot of times, just families just don't have the time. So we just have to help and support. And, as school systems, we need interventions put in place that can identify that need and then hopefully address it.
So when we're looking at cultural competence for educators, right, even K-12 or higher ed, and Pamela could attest to this, it's not just for people that look like us, it's also for people that look like us. Because a lot of times they don't have the cultural awareness of self, and so it's very difficult for them as well to work with our students. Some of them are also scared of our students just because they look like us. And again, their values and how they were raised are somewhat totally different than some of us, or what our expectations are for our children of color. And so a lot of times that cultural relevance and how we work with our students, it is all for everyone. So it's not just that 1% is you trying to get somebody else to come into the fold to help you advocate. Sometimes that's very difficult as well, because they're trying to find themselves in this whole thing called education as a leader and just as a person of color. And so sometimes that's difficult.
Can I add on something? One more thing, and then as an educator, avoiding burnout. Burnout is real. Burnout is real. Especially when you have certain schools with a lot of needs. So it's important to take care of yourself and do those things you need, quiet time, prayer, meditation, you even seeking out a counselor. That's very important instead of holding it in. Just like the gentleman mentioned about burnout and the statistics of those coming in the classroom, trying to medicate themselves in order to, stand before your kids. So, I mean, self-care is important.
I was going to add, when we talk about representation, currently at Cal State Long Beach, our students are asking for a diverse pool of staff and faculty in regards to that. And we're building our community at Cal State Long Beach. Our Black faculty and staff, we have them on campus, but we're not connected. So how can we help them if we're not connected? So representation does matter, but understanding where you are is important, as far as we were talking about cultural competence and being able to actually see that, but not only that, but see it with your colleagues in regards to that, but it also just, for instance, if we have no representation or counseling and psychological services, how are we going to help a student who wants to see someone that looks like them? So when we talk about representation, it just goes so much, is deep in regards to that. In regards to where we need to see it to really truly help our students from K-12 or higher ed in regards to that. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there as well.
I just wanted to also add, anybody who's in a leadership role who supervises teachers, that's your opportunity to be your advocate, because you actually supervise these individuals. So when we talk about a teacher who's constantly putting kids out of class, or someone, you go in a classroom, you see low-level instruction taking place, we got to have those courageous conversations. You'll be amazed how many principals do not like to have those courageous conversations with teachers. And I'm saying, well, if you see this and you're a supervisor and you know what's happening and you turn a blind eye, then you're contributing to the problem. So maybe you're not ready to be in that leadership role. So as leaders, we have to make sure we hold our teachers accountable. Every PD, you put the data out there. This is how many referrals we got to the office. This is how many were African American. This is how many were Latino. This is how many incidents that happened on the playground. Where was our supervision? So you have to really be on top of your school and know what's going on and be able to present that data and say, well, what do we do about this? And then those individuals who that you have concerns with, you got to have those one-on-one difficult conversations where it starts off as progressive discipline, because otherwise they'll continue to do things. And you have to be in those classrooms as an administrator. You cannot leave from your office. My supervisor always tells me he loves sports. He talks about the Dodgers and Dave Roberts, how great of a coach he is. But he said he can't coach his team from the parking lot. You can't coach you can't lead your teachers from your office. You got to be in those classrooms and out and about. So it's very important that we're visible, that you're out there greeting parents in the morning, that you know your community. It makes a big difference. So I think that's a good start.
also outside of this cultural competency piece, I think it's also, do teachers know how to get kids to the next level? In my experience, I wasn't a teacher who was sending kids out of the classroom, so my leadership already said, well, Jaleesa got it. We don't have to worry about Jaleesa, she has it. But what I didn't have is know the skills to be able to move kids. I did not know what to do with my babies that were at the bottom of the bottom. I didn't know that. No one was giving me those tools. And so I often wonder, and I was searching for them, right? I was looking all in different places trying to implement them in my classroom, but not a lot of people were giving me the support that I needed to make it efficient. So I often wonder, what does the district have to do, or in our schools, or with leadership, have to make sure that we're training teachers to be competent in their skill of being a teacher?
Oh, good, good. And I know that this is a conversation that we could have probably for the next 2-3 hours, but just for the sake of time, the last 2 questions for the afternoon. The first question is, as a parent, how do you advocate for at least one black or brown teacher in your school? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, are our students being prepared for college, or are they just passing them just because of the budget? So the first question is, as a parent, how do you advocate for at least one black or brown teacher in your school?
I would say ensuring, I mean, most interview committees have parents on there, you have students on there. It's important to have a diverse panel. So for every interview of teachers or even administrators, you should have parents on the committee, have students from leadership on that committee, and being able to give a voice. I think that's one thing you can do. But again, it goes back to, even if you do have a black or brown person, you gotta make sure they're culturally competent, because just because they look like you doesn't necessarily mean that they have your best interests. I can tell some of my students know there was one teacher at Henry Clay that was African American that nobody could stand and didn't want to be in that person's class. Because he would demean, degrade, put down, talk about how he made it and they should be able to make it because I made it, and no. And it's a lot of individuals like that who will put you down. I mean, I can't tell you how many parent conferences and complaints I had about this particular teacher who was a young African American male who would demean and put down kids and felt good about how many kids he failed. And so we had to have those kind of conversations like, no, it's not about, that's an oxymoron, a failing school, or failing classroom. That's not something you want to pride yourself on. So I'm just saying, if you're going to hire somebody who looks like us, they have to understand our community and understand our kids and have a heart. Because a kid doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So it's very important that we're looking for the right person. I don't care if you're white or Asian or blue. If you're going to care for our kids and go 100%, then that's the right person for our school. So that would be my answer to that.
And I would even push that question to know, first, do you know if that teacher is someone that you should be advocating for? Because a lot of times, like Dr. Sample just shared, they might not have your best interest for your student. And so I say it starts with the relationship. Everyone who's a parent or not should be building relationships with their teachers. And if you feel that the teacher is resistant to that relationship, then you should be trying to build a relationship with the principal or their higher up to be able to explore what's going on there.
That's true. So for my college folks that's on the panel in particular, but all of you all can answer this question. Are our students being prepared for college, or are we just passing them because of budget? Because of course, maybe not of course, we do realize that our students are a dollar sign based on the school that they go to. That's why if they are not in class, you're gonna get a phone call because they're losing money. And so if they don't pass them, that means that school gets knocked and it gets an overall deduction in grade, which means that it'll affect how much money that school gets, right? Just want to be sure that we're clear about that, because I know we like this, kumbaya moment, but at the end of the day, it's about money and power. Come on now, okay? It may not be about ghosts, but it's about money and power, all right? So are our students being prepared? Are they college, and I like what Dr. Sample said, are they college ready versus college eligible? Because there is a difference. Hello, somebody, there's a difference. Or are we just passing them just because?
Honestly, no. I don't believe they are preparing them to be college ready. We do see the statistics of that they are college eligible, and there's another conversation of why they may not be accepted to a certain university when they're college eligible and they've met all those requirements. But when they do come to the school, there are other factors that we deal with on a daily basis when they come to them, and it has nothing to do with their academics. They are very capable of getting the grades. It's more of a holistic that we talked about earlier of dealing with the transition. The environment. Is the climate accepting them? Is it welcoming? And majority of the time it's not, and it's the climate, but those are the factors that we have to talk about at the institution, and that weighs heavily on them, and that's what I'm seeing when we're in the campus. So honestly, no, I think there's a lot that we have to do. That's the partnerships that we talk about, working with the faith-based organizations and just looking at how we can have those honest conversations to prepare them on those non-cognitive factors that we're learning from Dr. Pendleton. But it's real. And, those stories are they're turgid, hearing it, you want to cry because they're just like, what am I doing wrong? But it's not them. It's just helping them see that they can make it. We just got to, tweak it a little bit and talk about it a different way.
So I agree with Pamela. So yes, I don't find a lot of our students, if we're talking about black and brown, who are college ready, right? So they're college eligible, they're able to apply to our campuses, CSUs or UCs. But once they get there, we talked about them having all this trauma in their backpack, right? And so once they jumped over this one hurdle to be successful, to graduate from high school and then to get into a college, they still have that backpack with the same trauma in it, right? And so one of the things I preach on my campus is that, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? And so we have these terms that we use now that are very, I guess, the end thing now, just to talk about grit. And so, our students go through amazing opportunities and hurdles and things like through K through 12. And so they already have this grit that we say they possess once they get to college. And so a lot of times administrators in college think that because they possess this grit, they have no more hurdles to jump, right? And so it's up to administrators like Pamela and myself to make sure that the environment they are on that is, creates a sense of belonging and connection, right? Because at the end of the day, Long Beach State and many universities across this nation would tell you, I actually don't need your child, right? Long Beach State gets 90,000 applications for 10,000 spaces, right? And so, but with that, they will brag on that every single day, but they will not brag on the retention rates where we get you in, but how do we make sure you get through the 4 or 5 years that you are there, right? And how do we make sure that you graduate? And so although we're doing some things to make sure our students stay on our campus and graduate, we still need a lot of work to do. And so that's not only on Pamela and I for us to do, right, but it's something for our parents to be active, or whoever the caretakers are in their child's lives to be active in the college experience as well. And then through the K through 12 journey, what are we doing there to have that? So the relationships that we need to build with LAUSD, Long Beach Unified, it's just not on LAUSD administrators and teachers to make sure the students are eligible and ready, right? It's this partnership that we need to create, because we created these silos within education that limits the success for our students. So when we remove those silos and say we can work together, then that would give us a bigger head start for all of our students.
One thing that we noticed when we were looking at, which is now last year's data, from LAUSD students, we saw that 3 out of 10 African American students were on grade level for English, and only 2 out of 10 were on grade level for math. However, the African American students' graduation rate is 8 out of 10. So what a lot of parents were grappling with is how are they not on grade level for math and English, but still graduating at this fast rate? And so I even think that even before they get to the college level, there's some things that are happening, that our children are being pushed in and out of grade levels and aren't really ready to be pushed in and out of these grade levels.
Just to add to that, there's a lot of students will come back and to visit their high schools, and a couple students said, I wish I would have been challenged more in high school, because now when I'm in college, I'm struggling. I'm taking remediation courses. And I might say, well, how's such and such done? Oh, he dropped out after the first semester. So like you said, we're getting our kids eligible, but they're not ready. So we really have to hold them more accountable. And to your point, Pastor Nell, not just ELA and math, at high school scores, they're looking at graduation rates too. So you want to have people want to have a high graduation rate, so they're doing a lot of these, what my supervisor call an end around. So you're doing these credit recovery programs, and if you can't get it with a teacher in front of you, how you all of a sudden can pass a class with a computer, online on a computer? So that's another, these kids are making up these courses, and then you're putting them in continuation. They're down 4 or 5 classes, they go to continuation, they get packets, and all of a sudden they caught up 6 units. So we're doing a disservice to our kids that way. So we really have to look at those interventions and see, what are we doing? Are we doing more harm? Or are we just trying to get a boost in our graduation rate?
Good stuff. That's good. And it's funny because all of this that we talked about, me and Karen experienced with our children. They went to summer school, they went to Learn for Life, which is credit recovery. They got these packets, all this stuff. And at the end of the day, my question was always, well, if they didn't get geometry in front of the teacher, because I know geometry, it was hard for me, and I had 2 different teachers. So how they gonna get it by a packet and online? And who's gonna be responsible for that? And so I get it. And like I said, this is an extended conversation that we can have. This was just an appetizer. We may have to come back together another time and continue this conversation. I don't want you all to leave here today and not realize that you do have resources, not only at this table, but you also have resources in the audience with you. I invited a good friend, high school classmate of me and John Hamilton's, Yolanda Gonzalez Wright. She helped our children get their college applications together, find money for them to go to school, and all that kind of stuff. So get with Yolanda after the service. If you've got kids that need to get prepared for that, for me and Lady Karen, do it sooner rather than later. Please, that way you don't have to try to get that job at Starbucks and a greeter at Walmart, but do it now. That way you can make it happen for yourself. But see Yolanda. Yolanda, wave your hand real quick. That's my sister over there. So go ahead.
We didn't talk about STEM, and our kids are getting left behind in STEM field, and they're using, the school system actually uses standardized testing to track them out. That happened to my daughter. I had to fight for years to make sure she was kept in higher level math and science. Now she's at USC in interactive media and game design. And so I say, if you have children who like puzzles, who like to kind of pull things apart and put it back together, but their grades are so average, they're meant for STEM. So I just want to say that because our kids are getting left behind, so I really want to promote the STEM pathway.
Good point. That's a very good point. Very good point. Thank you for that, Yolanda. This ends this conversation for today, but you get with these folks. These folks are my friends, okay? So it's not like these some highfalutin people that you can't touch. These are folks you can touch because they're my friends, and they truly got a heart for education. This ends our particular service for today. We're going to turn it over into our tithes and offering. If you got tithes and offering to give, we ask that you give that. We need envelopes. We got folks that'll give those out to you. You can also give electronically by texting Children's Generation to 77977. It should be on the screen. After this, we're going to go into our, because it is First Sunday, we're going to go into our sacrament. And so once we do offering, we'll go into the sacrament, and then we'll release you all, and we got some great snacks in the foyer, so just hold tight. Give me about Give us about 5 or 10 minutes, okay? So we got offering now, and then we do the sacrament. Amen? Amen.